There aren't too many differences between the 23 and the 2024 Ford Explorer. The big one is going to be the Limited Hybrid and the Platinum Hybrid. Those things are no longer available for the 2024 model. So if you are looking at an Explorer Hybrid, you're going to have to go back to the 2023 and, fingers crossed, hope that you can find one. I'm honestly really excited for the future of the Explorer though, because it's finally getting a refresh for the 2025 model year. But I'm really hoping that we get the international EV version of the Explorer, because that thing looks really, really solid all at the same time. Typically inside of the Explorer XLT, you're going to find an 18-inch wheel. But because this one has the optional Sport Appearance package, it bumps you up to 20s, a unique wheel style with the blacked out Ford logo in the very middle. I just think the setup looks solid. And honestly, if you're not crazy about the color, you could always hydro dip them instead if you wanted to create something a little bit more unique. Looking at the drivetrain of the Explorer, Canada, still only looking at four-wheel drive, versus in the States, you've got the option for rear-wheel drive. I guess technically rear-wheel drive is standard, with the option for the intelligent all-wheel drive system instead. And then as part of that all-wheel drive system, you've got a few different unique drive modes that you can cycle between that'll play with traction control, stability control, and all that fun stuff. The front end styling of the Explorer is great. You've got some LED headlamps, fog lamps down below. And as part of that Sport Appearance pack, you've also got the Explorer badge in the front end. Underneath the hood of the 2024 Explorer, you've now only got two engine choices that are available. There was the 3.3-liter hybrid that unfortunately is no longer available for the 2024 model. It's just going to be the 2.3-liter EcoBoost, or my favorite, the 3-liter twin turbo in the ST, and the King Ranch and the Platinum. But if you want power, you love the power, the 3-liter is definitely the way to go. But the 2.3-liter turbo is still nothing to snub your nose at. It's got 300 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. For a vehicle this size, this thing definitely has you covered. Underneath the hood, you've got easy access to the battery. You can top up your wiper fluid, and then you can easily check and change your oil. Just make sure you're regularly maintaining your vehicle to keep that manufacturer's warranty intact. It's, for the basic warranty, 3-year 36,000 mile or 60,000 kilometers. The powertrain is a 5-year 60,000 mile or 100,000 kilometers. And you can always bump that up at time of purchase if you want to, just for a little bit of added peace of mind. Filling up fuel inside of the Explorer is straightforward, and it's just along the driver's side. It's an unlocked cover with a capless system. It doesn't matter if you're in the 2.3-liter or the 3-liter turbo. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation is just regular 87 gas, so regular octane is all you need to use. But if you want the best possible performance, I say this in all my Ford videos, the turbocharged engines love premium fuel. 91, 93 octane if it's in your budget and if it's available. It's not necessary, you'll still get good performance out of 87, but the best possible performance, you definitely want to look at a 91 instead. The XLT typically is only going to have single tip exhaust, but you've got dual tip with that XLT Sport Appearance package. I just think it makes it look nice. Now, a few other things. You're going to have the reverse sensing system inside of the XLT regardless, along with the backup camera and the rear wiper. This thing does have the available tow package you're going to find from the factory. You could do something aftermarket, but it's going to cut down your overall towing capacity. Inside of the one from the factory, it does have the 7 and the 4-pin wiring provisions, and then the receiver. Towing capacity inside of the Explorer, inside of the 2.3-liter EcoBoost, you're maxing out at 5,300 pound capacity. If inside of the ST, or I guess the King Ranch or the Platinum with that 3-liter, it's going up to 5,600 pounds instead. If you need more, that's when you're looking at either the Ranger, the F-150, or go big with the Expedition instead. There are a few different types of liftgates you're going to find inside of the Explorer. So typically going to be power, and then the higher trims have a foot activated liftgate too. The regular power one though, you can use the key fob to open it up. There's a button just on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. And then just underneath the second R in Explorer, there's a little button you're just going to fiddle with and push in order to open this thing up. And then there's not a ton of stuff inside of the cargo area of this thing. You've got just your regular carpeted liner back here, fully removable tray. And then underneath that, there's also another storage tray that you can remove. And when you pop this thing out, you've got access to the mini spare tire. And then there's the white spigot. if for whatever reason, if something happens, you pop a tire, puncture a tire, need it changed, the jack is there. Like I said, it's just underneath the tire. So if you wanted to, you could change the tire out yourself, but being a Ford owner, you do have access to Ford roadside assistance. And that's good for the same duration as the powertrain warranty. So it's good for 5 years. And that covers you for things like tire changing, if you need to get fuel delivery, winching services, and a number of other things. So think of it like CAA in Canada or AAA down in the States, except it's tied to the car and not to the driver themselves. But one thing about the Explorer XLT is that the third row seats are going to be manual up and down. When you get to the higher trims, it's power instead. But in order to fold these things down, it's super straightforward. There's a little tab up to the top. You're going to pull that. It's going to fold down the headrest and then just release to drop it down. Straightforward, and it's a very flat fold, which is great. And then folding down the second row seats, you've actually got to get inside of the second row. So popping the door open, there are 2 different tabs that you could pull. So there's one in order to be able to get into the third row. That's not the one that we want. Just by the bottom of the seat, there's another one you can pull. You're going to grab that and drop down. And it's a 60-40 bench, so it's 60% on the passenger, 40% on the driver. Now this one is the bench configuration as well, which I'll touch on when we get inside. But there's a boatload of cargo space inside of the Explorer. And then the measurements that we're looking at, it's assuming we're going right from where the liftgate would close to just behind the armrest between the first row driver passenger seat. So if the driver seat, passenger seat back forward a little bit more, you'd have a little bit of extra space if you need it. Lifting up the third row seats in this thing is also straightforward. So there's another tab that you can pull, or strap, I guess I should say. So you can pull that and then lift up the headrest, and it's that simple to do it. Side view mirrors inside of the XLT, they don't feature turn signals, but they do have the blind spot monitoring system, and they are heated. Still got the 5-digit factory number pad there, so you could push the bottom 2 to lock the doors if you wanted to. And then this thing has intelligent access. You can push there to lock, slide your hand in order to unlock. But I love that Ebony+Slate interior. The color scheme, it's just so different than the traditional just ebony. I don't know, what do you think? I think it kind of looks nice. But you've got just your basic unlock lock buttons. Inside of some of the higher trims, you'd also have driver's seat memory. Basic window controls, side view mirror controls with a little bit of storage. You've got some speakers there with a few different speaker choices that are available. Touch on that in a second. You can open and close the liftgate, figure out what's going on with your running lamps, fog lamps, and then adjust the brightness of the cluster screen. The steering wheel inside of this thing is going to be a manual telescoping in the lower trims with a power in the higher. And then you're going to double pull there to get underneath the hood. Love this thing though. Nice ActiveX seating material, so the pleather seat. You've also got power driver seat, so forwards, backwards, up and down. You can adjust the backrest, and then there's also 2-way lumbar support inside of this thing. Ooh. I like the highlight though. So this highlight that follows all the way through, I think it looks pretty sharp. Visibility inside of this thing is pretty solid. Not getting too much blockage from that pillar along the side. I like it. Nice. Let's give this thing a little start. So you're always going to be push button start across the Explorer lineup. I mean, that's nice. Cluster screen there. So there are technically 2 different clusters available in the Explorer, and there are 2 different infotainment systems in the Explorer too. In the XLT, you've got your analog gauges. Inside of the higher trims, it'll be fully digital instead. But if you want to walk through on the cluster, the steering wheel buttons, the infotainment system, you'll find that down in the description of this video. But basics, you've got a button on the tip of that stick for your lane keeping system. It's going to nudge you, or it's going to either nudge you, or it's going to pretty much put you back into your lane. It's pretty straightforward. There's also the adaptive cruise control system. So that's your set it and forget it cruise. I honestly am a big fan of the adaptive cruise. Some people aren't, but there is also the lane centering system that's going to keep you nice and balanced in your lane. So one of the big benefits of that system is that if you start to go around a bend and you lose focus for a second, whatever the case may be, it's going to follow you around bends automatically. It's a really, really great safety setting. You've also got your volume buttons. From there, a series of other buttons in order to navigate through the cluster screen there. But like I said, walkthroughs are down in the description. Mentioned you're going to be push button start across the vehicle lineup. And then, like I said, 2 different infotainment systems. So the XLT is only going to have this 8-inch screen. There's the option of getting it with or without factory navigation. The factory nav, I like it. It's nice and simple, responsive. You do have the flexibility, though, of hooking up through Android or iPhone devices using a USB cable for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. But the infotainment system inside of this thing is nice and simple. There's a lot to it, but it's really straightforward all at the same time. A lot of good safety settings that are available, so lane keeping systems, blind spot system. So I mentioned that's going to highlight if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. Very straightforward. So a little storage tray there. Volume rocker, tuning rocker, your basic climate controls with dual zone climate control. Heated first row seats available there, along with a heated steering wheel, and heated all the way around. From there, you've got 12-volt power point, and then a few USB power points, so USB Type-C. So that's where you're going to plug in for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, but for audio, you can also use this for USB devices too, which is kind of nice. So USB audio. So you're just going to plug yourself in. And then sources, you've got AM, FM, Sirius XM. You can hook up your phone over Bluetooth to stream audio that way. Like I said, Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And then you can also go USB device instead. So it's just reading through. Now, this is the base audio system that you're going to find inside of the Explorer. There are a few different types of audio that you're going to find. I love the upgraded Bang & Olufsen you're going to find in some of the higher trims. But I want you to give this one a listen because this is just the base audio system here.
Wake up every morning, make a good impression on your boss. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do. And when you're making money, make sure you don't spend it too soon. Fuck that, I'll do what I want.
So like the audio inside of this thing is not bad. And hold on, watch this. So what we were listening to, it was just coming right into the microphone. There was no post-processing done whatsoever at half volume.
So I'ma figure out what else we succeed and then invest all of my time into that and proceed. I need whatever the hell could make me happy.
So the audio inside of this thing, it's not bad. And one of the things I would recommend is going through your settings and then change up, like crank your bass a bit, drop the treble a bit to give you some pretty solid audio. Moving down, you've got a little like phone storage holder, some cup holders, got the rotary dial shifter with park reverse neutral drive and a dedicated low gear. One thing to point out though, this thing doesn't have paddle shifters. So if you're going downhill, you do have that low gear available, towing heavy things, whatever the case may be. There's an electronic parking brake, auto hold setting, which is a nice safety one. It's like auto hold turned on, car's not moving when you come to a complete stop. Auto start stop's the one that's going to kill power to the engine if you're stopped for an extended period of time. Play with your traction control, and then there's also downhill control with a series of selectable drive modes. And the drive modes, really good. So slippery trails, snowy conditions, etc. These things are going to play with your traction control, stability control, your shift points. I would personally recommend just keeping yourself in sport mode if you want a better driving experience because it makes your shift points a little bit higher, which gives you a way sportier performance. That's the best way that I can describe it, but it doesn't give you more power in the engine, but like I said, with that higher shift point, it gives you more launch. It feels way better in comparison. There's unfortunately no way to permanently lock out to four-wheel drive mode. So the Explorer is an intelligent all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. Intelligent all-wheel drive means the vehicle figures out which wheel needs which amount of power and automatically diverts it as necessary, which is pretty neat. Some versions of the Explorer are going to have a wireless charge pad. The XLT unfortunately doesn't have it there. You've also got storage, a little bit of storage with a nice little 12-volt power point there too. Glove box here is fully lockable. There's a nice amount of storage space in there. It's a good visit. Ooh, I just noticed that. That little Explorer Easter egg down there, bottom right side. That's kind of neat. This one has a manual dimming rear view mirror. There's the option for the auto dim and higher trims, basic controls for your cabin lights, and then one nice thing is this thing has the panoramic sunroof. That panel roof just opens things up. Like, look at that. It's beautiful. You can vent this thing out as well. So you push away to vent, and that opens it up a little bit. You've got to close the vent, and then push to open it up. Single button press opens it up most of the way, and then a secondary press is going to open it up that full way. But most of the way, secondary press for that full way. There's a little bug guard. But I mean, look at that. That's beautiful. I love it. And then just a single button press in order to be able to close. It's nice. From there, I've got a little sunglasses holder. Visor does not have the HomeLink system built in. So if you want that garage door opener, you've got to either get a higher trim or do an aftermarket install instead. There's a little ticket receipt holder, vanity mirror with lights built in, and then this thing extends out. Oh yeah, look at that. Blocking all of the sun that could be hitting your face. But this is good overall, plenty, and like space-wise in here too, like it's wild. So hold on, do I have the seat down? There we go. So the seat down, as far as it's gonna go, like I've got, what, 5-ish, 6 inches of headspace there? Hold on. I'd say about 5 inches of headspace there, which is pretty dang solid. And this one, like I said, does have the panoramic sunroof, which opens things up nicely. But the seats inside of this thing are super comfortable. It's just a 2-way adjustable headrest, but still, this is good. And like I said, the color combination here, so this one's new, and honestly, I like it. I do like the slate, the Ebony+Slate interior here. It's something about the neat little contrast. The one thing that I think would make this pop a bit more is if the headliner was fully blacked out. Because if you see, there's like this little cross in the middle where it goes into that light. I think if they just made everything up black instead, I just think it would look sharper. Or at least maybe the cloth headliner across black, but I mean, I still think it looks nice overall. But hold on. I'm gonna set the driver's seat up the way that I would typically drive. And with the second row seat set up this way, with me being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a good amount of knee space, great amount of foot space, and up overhead, with me sitting fully upright, ooh, it's tight, like an inch and a half maybe of headspace. But one nice thing about the Explorer seats is that the lever that you pull in order to be able to fold the seat down for folding it flat for cargo, you can also give it a slight recline. And like when it's slightly reclined like that, more than enough space. So if I'd maybe see like 6'4", you'd probably be able to sit in the second row of the Explorer with the seat reclined, which is great. And one other nice thing is that just in between the seats there, so you can see there's a little lever. You can pull that in order to slide the seat forwards or backwards to create more space for people in the third row if you need it. Now, one thing, this seat, because this is the bench, like this thing is locked in place, so it can't be slid back or forward. It's strictly going to be the outboard seats that do it. So whether you go for the 6 or 7 seat configuration is going to depend on you, but you're always going to have 2 seats in the front, 2 seats in the back, and then it's either 2 or 3 seats in the middle. I don't need the extra seat, so I would probably go for just the dual captain's chairs because, in my opinion, they're slightly more comfortable. And then there's also a pass through to that third row instead, way easier. There's one other thing you could do. Pull this little tab. You can give yourself a tiny little armrest there too, or separate fighting kids, fighting parents, grandparents, whatever the case may be. So that is available as an option if you need it. But other than that, like the styling here along the door is nice and simple. Tiny little cup holder there, a little bit of bottle storage there. There's a handle, hook, and a light, and that's the same on the driver and on the passenger side. You're going to find a pocket behind both the driver and the passenger side on top of that. And then the armrest, you're going to find a few other things. So there's fan control, temperature control. Do you want to go into your face or feet? There are 2 USB Type-C power points down there. There's a 12-volt power point there. And then you're also going to find a few cup holders, which is kind of cool. So that's standard regardless of the model of the Explorer that you're in. But there are also, with the bench configuration, some extra cup holders built right into the seats there too. So straightforward, plenty spacious. There are anchor points there to go well with your top tether points. And then with this middle seat, I still have more than enough knee space there too. Like you could easily fit 3 full-size adults, like 3 versions of me, shoulder to shoulder. I don't think you're going to have an issue inside of this thing, which is good. And like with me being in this middle seat, like 3-ish inches of headspace, which is kind of nice. Middle seat though, definitely not as comfortable as the outboard, which is unfortunate. One other thing to point out is that inside of some of the higher trims, you would also have the option for outboard heated seats in the second row. So that's kind of a trade-off looking at the XLT versus something like the Limited, the King Ranch, Platinum, whatever the case may be, but matter of preference. Now, the downside of having the bench configuration like this, getting into the third row, a little bit more challenging. Not impossible, but all you're going to do is hop outside. And then there's a tab right along the top there, so you're just going to pull that up in order to slide yourself in. So, struggle's real when you're tall. Okay, let's go as far back, not quite as far back. This seat here on the right is as far back as she's gonna go. And hold on, look at this. So that's a little bit tight. I can still fit back here, which is kind of nice, but super tight on the knees there. But I mean, that's where you'd have, well, I guess this seat push forward a little bit more because like I said, in the bench configuration, this seat is locked in place. So, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, fold it down in order to kick your foot up if you needed that extra space. But I think that's where just having the bench configuration instead, the dual captain's chairs would make more sense. But there's not a ton of stuff back here. Like along the side there, a little bit of storage, cup holder. That's about it for the driver and for the passenger side. And then spacing wise, like headspace, is actually not too bad. So hold on, me sitting fully upright, I'm like just missing the top. Like if I poofed my hair up a bit, I'd be scraping along the top there. It's like you're maybe maxing out at like 6'1" inside of the third row. But all of the anchor points are down there too. And then you've got tether points as well in the third row seats. So if you did need to have child seats, you could throw them in the third row if the other seats have to be occupied by some taller people. It's not bad though. Another thing to point out, you've also got a little vent control, driver passenger side, and then a little light on top of that. And getting out of this thing, not too hard. Just gonna pull, push. Yeah, struggle's real. Oh yeah. Woo! It's got the power to boot. Like, it's not obviously as powerful as the 3-liter twin turbo you're going to find inside of the ST, the King Ranch, and the Platinum. But I mean, still, it's pretty solid at the same time. Oh, God, I love me that sport mode. So the sport mode, you can hear the RPMs going on it. And that's because in the sport mode, it's going to hang onto those RPMs a little bit longer just to help you launch and give yourself a little bit more oomph as you go. So if you are a bigger fan of kind of a sportier performance, you want to be in sport mode. If you're a little bit more eco-conscious though, there still is the eco mode that you could flip yourself into instead. So if that's something you're concerned about, it is available. All right, and there we go. That is respectable. That is a respectable amount of power. And like even the handling in this thing, I mean, how do you go wrong there? And like it's as it turns around the bend for me too. It is so neat. So neat. I love it. The visibility inside of the Explorer is solid. Like even the pillars along the outside there on the driver's side, passenger side, it doesn't create much of a blind, like it doesn't really create much of a blind spot at all. And that was a look at the 2024 Ford Explorer XLT. You can find a build link and all the tech walkthrough videos, the contact details for Formula Ford down in the description. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Until I see you next time, take care.